Good evening, everybody, and welcome into tonight's edition of Wave News Extra. If you're familiar with our live stream, you know we always like to take a good look at our nighttime skyline, courtesy of our SkyTrack network of cameras. And there you see a nice, quiet Ohio River, no real remnant of the ice and snow, and the lights and traffic there on the Jeffersonville side looking down of the river, looking nice and smooth. Appreciate you joining us. As always, I'm Jose Sosaya, kind of breaking down the day's top stories, and also an opportunity for, when we have the opportunity, I should say, to break down some stories, even if they could be local, they could be happening in places much further away, but just sort of bringing you that opportunity to connect, dive a little bit deeper into some of those other perspectives, some interviews, and an ability to go over the stories that our Wave News team covers over the course of the day. They're busy as you were busy yourselves with your schedules, your routines, work, everything in between. So why don't we dive right into what I wanted to start off with? And if you can believe, sometimes the news does happen very close to where we are. By that, I mean where we're working, our offices, the studio, our desks, and all this to let you know, if you've been hearing or seeing these pictures or videos, it's the end result of LMPD going after two guys who they arrested because they were spotted in a stolen car in downtown. But then the SWAT team was called in to try and, end this chase. It did happen, but it all played out right outside our studio parking lot. So what you're hearing here is a bit of the narration that police are offering. And so what I'm going to do is mute that really quick, just to make sure, that's the raw file. But what you can look at is the video in and of itself. Now, LMPD is crediting its own technology and the teamwork between officers for making this all happen. And you could see what it took to get these eyes in the skies. A guy running there, you could see with the security video. Why don't we jump over into another version that will kind of loop a little faster, but to put you all where this was. So it was February 17th. So it was last Tuesday. I-65 South around downtown. The video then shows SWAT cars eventually are going to swoop in behind the stolen car. LMPD says officers were able to use a grappler device to bring the car to a stop. But then you could see when two suspects inside the car get out and start running away, one of them was arrested immediately while the second person was tracked by an LMPD drone. And all this was while running down South Floyd Street. And so what I'm going to do is get you here. Look at this. This was right before one of the men arrested right outside our building gates. And this is where detectives recovered two guns. This is straight from our own security system. In fact, one of our Wave News photographers witnessed this playing out in real time as he was coming back from a completely different story. So again, LMPD tells us both the suspects they were looking for, they were arrested. They disclosed their backgrounds. They are convicted felons and, now new suspects. This is, again, the shot from our building security video. This was at our back gate. The cruisers surround the suspect before tackling him to the ground. LMPD hasn't released the name of either of these guys yet or their specific charges. When we do find that out, we will make sure to let you know, and you can still see that part in the circle where we sort of want you to focus on and zoomed in where the arrest ultimately happens. So, yeah. Let's see. Well, Mike, appreciate you joining in on the Facebook commentary. We could do without maybe the vulgarity, but we can understand your point. This is just sort of, at least in the access to this video security camera, this is our own. This was just sort of the circumstance and happenstance of what happened. And so just trying to develop the timeline of the pursuit and investigation, as it were. By the way, again, a reminder that you all, are more than welcome to jump into the conversation for the live stream crowd on the comments. So, Mike, obviously welcome to have that commentary, but you could see at least, the pieces connecting the dots that we're able to have, at least for this particular story now, for the policy discussion. That'd be something, we can always check in with leadership, with LMPD, with the city, and sort of this adoption of the newer security systems and the technology in that regard. All right, we're going to move on to another story I wanted to share with you all. And in that matter, I'm going to pull up some footage here. This has to do with some legal troubles for a local fencing company. Basically, it boils down to unfinished work, unreturned deposits for clients. Well, today, the owners of the company were supposed to be in court because these issues haven't been fully solved. Our Logan Perrone, as part of the troubleshooters team, actually was first to talk about this pattern of problems last August. And so we wanted to be in court for whatever this update was going to be. So the problem here, consistent with people who've reached out to Wave troubleshooters since August, there's a deposit made, services promised within a few weeks, but after the refund is requested, there's radio silence. So this is the breakdown from Logan. So representatives for Dove Hill, it's an LLC that's tied to the company in question, Cardinal Fencing and Security. They were supposed to be in court today. A Jefferson County judge ordered the company pay a default worth more than $70,000 to a finance company called Itria Ventures. An Itria attorney says sometimes a business overextends itself, pays old bills with new money, then your new bills don't get paid. So we did talk to a man who also took Cardinal Fencing to court, won a judgment against them last month. He has a similar message for people that he's found and heard secondhand that there could be other victims.
It would have been good if we checked them. Even this going on Facebook would have probably helped us out a lot. Yelp is another one. There's a whole list on Yelp as well that have gotten poor service out of him. So do a little homework before you give him the deposit, for sure. He showed up.
And that was Kent Godey, who said he is still waiting for his money. Earlier today, we stopped by the office for Cardinal Fencing. It was locked. Gilbert was not available for an interview today, but says the registered agent that was supposed to be in court this morning was sick. So a story that will continue to follow as it all develops. As you know, we do, the story is never done sometimes. So you just always have to keep at it with phone calls, visits, and just checking in to see where else the story might lead. Okay, here to a bit of infrastructure update, because this was an idea on the drawing board for about a decade, really. But now, after about a year construction, the East Market Streetscape project in Nulu is complete. This is what our David Mattingly spent some time reporting on today. $12 million to transform about a mile of this street and the sidewalks from Brook to Baxter. There's, at least in the reporting, more room for foot traffic. That is part of the expectation that it's going to invite more people in. Greenery, a dedicated bike lane separate from the street. The goal, at least for those supporting the project, was to make Nulu more accessible, safer, more inviting. Of course, the area in itself has become a re-energized hotspot for nightlife and dining. Popular for visitors, especially during very busy times of the year. City leaders today thanked the residents and shop owners for being patient during construction, because the project hit on many key needs for the area, except for one, which was discussed.
As a business owner, while we always hope for additional parking solutions, we also recognize that accessibility, outdoor retail space, and a pedestrian-friendly environment are what make the neighborhood fully thrive.
So the key word there actually being the parking. Some business owners that David talked to today, talked to Wave News, did express some concerns if crowds are going to continue to grow in Nulu if parking then does not grow at the same time. Mayor Greenberg talking to him today, saying there's a parking deck near there under construction, but there are no other projects to alleviate or address that concern currently in the works. Coming back here into our studio, and right now we did send our Wave News team out to cover stories that might extend beyond just the locus here of Jefferson County. In fact, this has to do with Spencer County and its school board voting on a plan that's going to dictate how school employees, how many of them are ultimately and unfortunately going to lose their jobs next year. And this comes after their local superintendent says there was an error in the district budget. It's forcing them to make up $1.5 million. Our Wave News reporter, Fernando Garcia Francescini, is sharing what the district is trying to do now to fix this problem.
The Spencer County Schools superintendent tells me they first found out about this issue last August when the district's new chief financial officer found an inaccurate revenue projection that will now lead to dozens of jobs getting cut.
We do understand the gravity of this.
Superintendent Willie Foster says a miscalculation with state money coming into the district led them to believe they had $1.5 million more in their budget than they actually did. That costly mistake will now force the district to cut dozens of school jobs.
Anytime you talk about financial issue, budget issues, school or school district, it erodes trust.
And Foster says they're now working to rebuild that trust. In a letter sent to families, Foster explained they corrected this issue before the working budget was passed in September. But he went on to say it required dramatic adjustments, particularly to the district's contingency fund, which the state mandates must be at least 2%. The contingency fund is money that can be used for things that are unprecedented and unbudgeted, like damages to buildings after severe weather.
Today, as we sit here, personnel cost us 85.45% of our budget. If we did nothing rolling into next year, it would go up to 87. So that would leave us 13% of our budget to operate and have a 2% contingency, and that doesn't work.
Foster says it's up to each individual school to decide which positions to cut, but the school board will vote Tuesday night on the total positions for each school. Foster says it'll be a difficult but necessary step forward for the sake of the district.
The expectation of the public to this district is that you have to operate within your means. And, sometimes that comes with making hard decisions.
It's still up in the air exactly how many positions will be cut, but the superintendent says they won't eliminate mental health practitioners or the preschool. In Spencer County, Fernando Garcia, Francis Cheney, Wave News.
Coming up on the other side of the break here on Wave News Extra, we're going to discuss TARC's vote now to increase what it's going to cost to take your bus rides. And as I was alluding to a little earlier at the top of the live stream, we did get a chance to meet a couple snowbirds who are enjoying their wintertime down in Pacific Resort Town in Mexico, not too far away from where this cartel military operation happened that obviously created a bit of chaos, and then for tourists, at least in the U.S. perspective and the Canadian perspective of how that might have derailed a lot of travel plans. But just to share a little bit more about what the updates are from sources in Mexico, and then this perspective about how they're managing and what they were able to experience. So I wanted to share that with you. We're going to have more of that after the break here on Wave News Extra. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We are back here on the Wave News Extra stream, live from the Wave Now studio. Always appreciate you guys joining us as we break down some of the big stories we've been following throughout the day. One of them, in this case, for anybody who's a frequent TARC user or just, are curious about what these government services are and going to be for the public moving forward. TARC did approve now its proposal. It's going to increase fare on bus routes and bus services. So if you're familiar right now with the prices, one ride is $1.75. Under this new fare schedule, it's going to jump pretty soon to $2.25. And this also means increases on daily rides, weekly, monthly passes as well. So today is the 24th. These changes are actually coming rather soon. It's going to be next week, March 2nd. The board's decision comes after it did have extensive public meetings available with the community. These updated fares, TARC says, it's a broad strategy to maintain what it calls long-term, reliable, sustainable transit as the agency prepares to launch a new TARC network further down the road this year, though, coming up in August. What I'm going to share with you all is a bit of a Wave News Extra in-depth insight with just some added perspective we didn't get to share with you in the earlier newscast, but just of a hometown from someone in Louisville on vacation in Mexico about how they were seeing the situation play out with the cartel operation. You likely saw all over the news come in, those alerts on your phones and on your TVs over the weekend. In some reporting, yes, we know some American tourists still haven't been able to return home from where they were vacationing, forced to cancel their flight, adjust plans. But this all was in the context of what happened when it was confirmed that one of the country's more wanted cartel bosses was killed. And along with other cartel members in this military operation, there's Mexican troops aided by U.S. intelligence. I did want to show some of the images that were taken since that was confirmed in that cartel operation. But this was sort of more of the sporadic cars being lit on fire. The name that's involved here is someone who is nicknamed El Mencho, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. He was the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. It has been confirmed it's a major trafficker of drugs into the U.S. So yeah, this killing, taking out Oseguera is what triggered, in this case, a lot of the cars being lit on fire, several airlines suspending flights to and from affected cities. Some of those routes continue to be disrupted. Flights to and from other cities are set to resume today. That is a video taken from the more Pacific side town in Puerto Vallarta. Real quick, this was part of an email sent out to U.S. travelers who registered with the State Department's alert system, and this is what was sent to the couple who you're going to meet in a bit, the Hobsons. The subject line was ongoing security operations, U.S. mission Mexico, basically saying by around 12 this 12 this afternoon, not too much time ago, but essentially saying that public transportation and businesses could go back to normal operations, acknowledging what happened on the 22nd, which was Sunday. U.S. citizens no longer had to shelter in place. The statement does keep going to talk about it's a downgrade from a shelter in place, but there's still a curfew in effect right now for some of these key cities in Mexico. All are either in Jalisco, the state, or close by. You might be familiar with some of these city names. That's Guadalajara, Puerto Vallarta, Tijuana, Ciudad Guzman. There are government staff being asked who are State Department staff on the U.S. side in two cities to remain inside their metro areas. The question then is, what about some flights going out? If you're following this news, official government sources from the State Department. So in this case, the State Department saying they did return to normal in Guadalajara. Many other airlines had extra flights planned. In Puerto Vallarta, both airports, according to the U.S. government, they were secure. Amenities were available. If there was a direct flight back home canceled, that they were recommending you book a connecting flight through another Mexican or U.S. city. Now, through the State Department as well, I'm going to go to this last bit of the quote here, just so you have the context of what was sent to them to sort of assuage the fears of being trapped. But there were no reports of road closures directed by local authorities, though there were some roads in Jalisco that were still not fully reopened. And part of that perhaps doing with these images of some of the damage done, for example, like in these gas stations, you could see, and reporters on the ground looked into instances of blocked highways, drivers forced out of their cars at gunpoint, trucks, buses set on fire. But many Mexican, citizens also talked to journalists. They were demanding an end to the violence that was being started by these cartel connections. Blockades were reported around various states, classes suspended in at least 3 states. Those schools were, police and soldiers doing their part on the ground to try and just, keep things under control. And so, again, just more images of what we're able to share with you. But all this to say, this afternoon, the Wave News team was able to connect with the Louisville family in one of the towns right over Puerto Vallarta. It was called Nuevo Vallarta on it's the Pacific coast side, but just across the border from the state border of where this was all going down. They're the Hobsons. They started their snow burning January 25th. But they were a unique case in that they had no plans to leave until later, into early April. So they had plans to stay for a while. Jane Hobson is who we talked to. Jane, in this case, is a experienced travel agent, more well-versed in signing up for safety alerts, gauging international travel risks generally. 2 things I want to share with you from our conversation with Jane was her discussing the information she was watching and getting on the ground level as it was happening in real time.
What we were told on Sunday morning, that there had been a military operation up in the mountains. And so as of Sunday morning, when we got up and went down by the pool after breakfast, stuff was happening in the streets. They were calling out the military in reaction to what the cartel was doing in roadways, main highways. And they were stopping cars, burning tires, essentially trying to stop the troops from coming in, because this has been a military operation altogether. It's not really involved any kind of civilians in any way, unless they happen to get in the way. And so we have absolutely seen nothing, and it's been business as usual for the last 48 hours here at the.
This was a video that Jane had sent us, so you could see at least in their relative calm after the initial chaos at their specific resort. Jane talked about how, knowing in her and her husband Ed's position, resort guests were very insulated from the worst of the flare-ups. The situation, again, forcing airlines to have to put their clients or customers in a better position. But Jane also described to us how, at least in her direct circle, things were calm, that the coverage being shared internationally probably was dissuading a lot of U.S. tourists from coming down, even though, again, based on the local reporting and intel she says she was getting, the scope of the shockwaves were more about 2 specific parties being at odds with each other. In that case, it was the cartel fighting back against the military for its targeted operation.
The only people I think who I have heard of changing their plans are people who have not arrived here. And like, we had some friends that were supposed to come down next week, and they said they're going to go to Florida instead. And I think it may be as a result of news broadcasts. Maybe they don't have the full information on what's going here, and it makes it sound like it's just total unrest here, as opposed to being a military operation between the cartel and the police, which is what this is. We weren't allowed to go out to restaurants because all the restaurants in the nearby town where we go for dinner, they had closed because nobody's going to be able to get there. But we don't normally go out and go into side streets. We take taxis and go to the main little town next door to the resort and go to a restaurant and then come back. I mean, that's the way we do under normal circumstances. So that's just what we'll be doing, just as we normally do.
Certainly an evolving situation, and having that perspective on the ground with obviously meaningful connection to Wave Country. When we have these opportunities to sort of talk to them in the interview and reporting and share that with you all on the streaming side of things, certainly we want to relish those chances, and of course, be glad that they're safe as well. All right, folks, we're going to take a break here for the live stream to reset, talk about what's coming up. In fact, it's a small preview of what you might be tuning into a little later once this hour is over for the State of the Union, and just sort of the big issues policy-wise, how local representatives are sort of either preparing or not preparing for the address by President Trump. And so we're going to address and we're going to touch on some of those key policy points and why it matters leading up to the speech tonight. We'll do that on the other side of the break here on the Wave News Extra live stream. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back into Wave News Extra here in the Now studio. Folks, I'm Jose Sosaya. In a little less than half an hour, Wave is going to prepare for the special coverage coming up in Washington, D.C. For President Trump's latest State of the Union address. And so we're working, to have that sent direct to you. Of course, watch it on the main Wave source on your TVs, but also going to have that ready to go on our Wave Now app, which some of you are watching us on right now. The Wave app, the Wave Now app on your smart TV devices are also on the live stream side of things: Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, all of the above. One of those policy points that the Trump administration, President Trump, likely going to discuss, tariffs, but we know that took a major blow last week with the Supreme Court's ruling to strike them down on the measures of the specific IEEPA Act and how that, at least the argument of the majority, went against the Constitution. Reporter Molly Martinez is taking a look, for example, at the tariff impact on one commodity in particular, which then leads us to what might be even other policy discussions that we'll be paying attention to later tonight.
Like many good stories, this one starts with a fight. A week ago, I bought this cup of coffee. 8 ounces of black coffee came out to a staggering $5.63. That's 70 cents an ounce. That's like printer ink prices. I put it on Instagram. The business, who declined an interview, answered with this: "It's crazy, but we pay 18% rent, 44% labor. 30% food cost. Also, coffee is all single origin, which has increased 40% in the last 12 months. They say the store is barely breaking even." Back in April, on Liberation Day, when President Trump announced the tariffs, he made this promise.
More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers.
There's one problem. The United States, with the exception of Hawaii, doesn't have the climate to grow coffee beans, so we rely on imports. According to NerdWallet, coffee import prices from Brazil and India have risen 50%. Vietnam, Thailand, and Nicaragua, nearly 20%. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show the average pound of coffee costs $9.14, which is up 41% from a year ago. Michael Negron from the Center for American Progress explains businesses are getting roasted.
Once that business pays that tariff, they then have to decide, am I just going to eat the cost of this tariff, or do I need to charge whoever I'm selling it to.
A cup of coffee might seem like a drop in the bucket, but Negron explains it's boiling over.
The kind of weekly expenses of groceries and gas and utilities, these are all things that get in the way of whether you're saving money.
According to a January Wall Street Journal poll, only 9% viewed the economy under President Donald Trump as doing excellent, whereas nearly 60% viewed the economy as doing poorly. In Washington, I'm Molly Martinez.
So just one frame to look at, perhaps the conversation about affordability and prices in the world of covering political stories. Also, the speech the president will deliver in front of a Congress that we know, and also in the recent reporting, deeply divided among their own policy priorities and agendas, and having to deal with serious decisions on votes in the year ahead. Our Washington correspondent Stephen Goen wanted to set up this report with 3 key things folks at home should consider in the context of how the State of the Union speech will be delivered.
Right now, we're just hours away from the president's address, where first and foremost, he'll be focusing on what he sees as his biggest accomplishment so far, 1 year into his second term. President Trump expected to spotlight his economy, shaped by an aggressive tariff strategy, as well as foreign policy successes and immigration enforcement efforts across the country. He's also set to outline his top priorities for the upcoming year. Next, we know nearly 24 Democratic lawmakers are planning to boycott the address, instead attending a progressive counter-programming rally, the People's State of the Union. The boycott underscoring the mounting political tensions in D.C. Finally, here's what to look for after the State of the Union. Virginia's new governor, Abigail Spanberger, will deliver the official Democratic response from Colonial Williamsburg, the former congresswoman viewed as a rising Democratic Party star after flipping the Virginia governor's mansion blue in 2025. And the president's address starts at 9 p.m. Eastern, followed by that official Democratic response. All of this happening amid a backdrop of a partial government shutdown in the Department of Homeland Security. In Washington, I'm Stephen Goen.
And so with that, the setup that Stephen had laid out there, what were the expectations coming up in heading into the speech now in a matter of minutes as it's going to play out, the special coverage? Republican lawmakers largely looking forward to the address tonight. Indiana Representative Erin Houchin said that she wants to see the president celebrate and highlight the work that House Republicans have been doing.
Really, it's remarkable what he's been able to do in 1 year, something that most presidents don't do in an entire term. So I want to hear him talking about how America is safer, stronger, and more prosperous under his leadership, and highlight all those things that have gone on that side of the ledger. We have way more accomplishments to celebrate, and I'm looking forward to hearing him talk about those things.
Now, you heard Stephen talk about some of the Democratic House lawmakers choosing not to attend, and one of those would be Kentucky Congressman Morgan McGarvey, who did explain that he was not going to be in the audience for the address, quoted as saying that the State of the Union is a time to reflect on the state of the country, that he sees, quote, our government unleashing unimaginable violence against our neighbors and our nation slipping into authoritarianism. These are not mere policy disagreements. We cannot pretend these are normal times, end quote, from Morgan McGarvey. Here is, a similar, another Kentucky congressman just on the other side of the aisle from Morgan McGarvey, Brett Guthrie, talking about what he feels the president should be really highlighting and focusing in on over the course of the speech coming up.
I've been the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, so I've worked very closely with him on the Working Families Tax Cut, the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so I hope he talks about what we did in that bill. I think it was extremely successful. A lot of times it gets lost in the headlines, or the headlines get lost of what we did. People have no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. People can pass down their family farm. People who are getting free health care that are able to work will work. And so the border, outside of that bill, the borders, well, it's part of it, actually. The border's under control. And so I think we need to talk about our successes, but also look to the future. And in my area where I'm working with the president now is in healthcare, is that healthcare is too expensive. People don't know what the prices are. And so transparency in healthcare, looking at affordability in healthcare. And we've started this year, so it'll be what he's talking about in the future, of having hearings with 5 biggest healthcare CEOs. We had hearings in the healthcare supply chain. We're going to look at providers and start formulating policies. It's complicated. It's going to be difficult to do in the next few months, but we're going to begin policies of letting people at least know how much their health care costs. And people can't even find that answer.
And that was a Kentucky Congressman Brett Guthrie there. We're going to shift now to, perhaps the other story that has not left the headlines in this case. It's about the search for Nancy Guthrie out in southern Arizona.
Someone out there knows something that can bring her home. Somebody knows. And we are begging you to please come forward now.
Savannah Guthrie and her family now offering $1 million to help get their mom back. That was Savannah announcing that reward on Instagram today. She's been maintaining hope her mother's still alive since she vanished more than 3 weeks ago. Here's more of what she had to say. Let's see if I could pull that video up here.
It is day 24 since our mom was taken in the dark of night from her bed. And every hour and minute and second and every long night has been agony since then, of worrying about her and fearing for her and aching for her. And most of all, just missing her,
Now, in addition to the reward, Savannah Guthrie saying the family's going to donate $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Though the FBI, again, we know they released doorbell camera pictures of an armed and masked man outside Nancy's house the morning she disappeared. Authorities have still not identified a specific suspect in her case. And now in another story that's kind of caught, a lot of people's attention online, certainly, and this was over a televised award here. What happened was you see actors there, Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo. There's backlash growing after there was a racial slur shouted more than once. This is during the BAFTA Awards in London. There was someone in the audience who had shouted the N-word Sunday night while Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were presenting an award. The man's name who shouted was John Davidson. He suffers from Tourette syndrome. He was at the ceremony because he was the subject of a film that did receive awards at the ceremony called I Swear. In fact, the Best Actor award was to Robert Aramayo, who portrayed Davidson in that film. Now, since then, the BBC has apologized for not editing out the racial slur from its pre-taped coverage. So while that was not aired live, the BBC saying there would have been an opportunity to do that edit in the moment. I did not, and it is apologized for that. Obviously, then generating very intense conversations in the social marketplace on media platforms, as it were. All right, 8:42. We're going to do a quick break just to talk about two very, unrelated sort of stories, but local and things to let you all know are going on, something we wanted to share. So we're going to take, I'll say, as a very brief pause, do that, and then prepare for our special coverage leading into the State of the Union. So we're going to do that and be right back in just a bit. All right, folks, as promised here with a bit of last minute or last addition to our live stream. This is our view inside a school gym. Some JCPS students walking away with a brand new set of wheels. This is thanks to All Kids Bike that stopped by Coleridge Taylor Montessori School. The program provides everything that is needed for kids to learn how to ride their bikes. So the school in total received 25 bikes, helmets, and a full curriculum to teach each of the kindergartners who received the new gift. And looking ahead, the Louisville Zoo kicking off a new tradition just this weekend. It's starting on Saturday. It's a monthly event to celebrate the zoo's animal residents with special custom treats, enrichment activities designed for the animals themselves. So they're calling it the monthly birthday bashes. This month's birthday is going to be Gladys the bongo, several penguins, Barry the meerkat. For fans of the zoo, they say the celebration goes from 10 in the morning until 12:30 p.m. So plenty of time to enjoy the special perks, and it does come with that is included with regular zoo admission. A reminder that all of our stories, updates, this is the local stuff happening here, all around Wave Country, the top headlines, original reporting from our troubleshooters, and original pieces, all there updated by our digital team. And here at your fingertips, we also send those push alerts to your phone, and you likely will be getting one in about 15 minutes when we do start our special coverage of the State of the Union. But here you could also follow along everything that Wave News has to offer. A great resource here for wave3.com. Let me take you out here. One last look at our calm, still pretty chilly night skyline, observing the bridge traffic there, and just wrapping up our Tuesday, February 24th. I'm Jose Sosaya. Appreciate you joining us here while we set up this live stream opportunity to break down some stories in the Now studio. You'll likely see us set up again for the special coverage coming up on the State of the Union. For that, we'll make sure to take care of all this. Until then, appreciate you joining us, folks. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.